Welcome back to my channel. It's the boy in blue. And in this video, I thought I would talk a little bit about some of the rumors going around in the Captain America Civil War movie and some characterization things that fans are calling for. Now, anyone who's familiar with me, who knows me personally, or who has seen my first video knows that I'm gay. That being said, you would think that I would be very much for this fan demand for Captain America to be given a boyfriend, specifically for it to be Bucky Barnes, aka Winter Soldier. However, I just don't know if that's what I want. And this is just talking about my opinions on the subject. If you think that it should happen, if you think that it'd be like a really good thing or like groundbreaking or anything like that, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm definitely not gonna shame you or, call you out for your opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Here's mine, and I want to explain why I am kind of against it. Captain America, Steve Rogers, has been a historically heterosexual character. He used to have a romance. He had a brief romance with Peggy Carter in the comics. She was not nearly as famous as she is now, thanks to Haley Atwell and her expanded role in the first Captain America movie, and then her getting her own show. But like prior to all of that, she was just pretty much a footnote. She didn't really have a lot going on. She was mentioned a lot, but she was hardly there. His main love interest throughout the years was Sharon Carter, and so that's why I wasn't surprised when he and Sharon got together in Civil War. Although I felt like the execution was very poor. They didn't really give them any build up, in my opinion, at least not enough. That being said, I feel like while more gay characters, and well, any gay characters in the movies would be very welcome, I think that turning historically like heterosexual characters gay for the sake of like fan demand or fan service or anything like that is just, I just don't see the point. I feel like why not just introduce some new badass gay characters or like LGBTQ characters who could be popular enough to transition into the comics and get their own movies, get their own spin-offs. We've seen this kind of thing happen with people like Harley Quinn and Livewire to a lesser extent from Superman, the animated series. And, that would be one way to do it. Also, any, like, already established LGBTQ characters you could introduce into the movies. That would be a fantastic thing as well. Like, I'm waiting for the day that they come out with a Young Avengers movie so that I could see my Hulkling and Wiccan romance. I'm waiting for that, because I really love Wiccan. I love magic users. And he's gay. They were gay from the start. So another thing I wanted to kind of discuss, and where like a lot of this is coming from, this whole like give Captain America a boyfriend, let him and Bucky be together kind of thing, is because of his intense loyalty to Bucky in the movie, and how much he was willing to like risk for him, and he was willing to like basically toss away his morals for him to try to protect him and save him. A lot of people are reading that as kind of like homoerotic subtext or something like that. Like they're reading it as like, oh, he loves him in that way. I didn't really see it that way. I saw it as, especially after it's revealed that Peggy died, which, oh my god, as soon as I saw that they were going to a funeral and that it was in England, I knew it was Peggy, and I just like died on the inside. I'm like, they're already probably going to cancel Agent Carter. Why, God? Why? I'm like, everything that's going so right with like the new X-Men movie coming out tomorrow, and like all of, like the new slate of Marvel movies. Doctor Strange is coming out at the end of this year. We're getting Ant-Man and Wasp. We're getting all such good stuff, and then Peggy. All right, sorry, I got to get back on subject. I feel like, especially with the death of Peggy, Bucky is the last, literally, like hear me out. Bucky is literally the last person from Steve's past. The last person who is from that time period, who knows like about his life there and who knows about him personally because they're best friends, and who is his last link to his past. He's the last one. It's like if it were you if it were you and like this person, even though he's evil, like mwahaha, evil, so us, you know, like what am I trying to say? He's like evil, quote unquote evil, you know, but wouldn't you want to try to see the humanity in him or her? Wouldn't you want to, you know, fight for that person and try to save them if they're the last link to your past and you're in a whole new world? Like, I feel like they haven't really played up. I think actually no, I take that back. I think actually Captain America Civil War did play up the fact that he is a fish out of water, that he is, you know, in this completely new time period where everything is different with like that list. They played it off kind of lightly, but I feel like in this movie they could have expanded that more. Like talked about how like, you know, this is a whole new thing for me. Like everything is completely different. My world is gone and I can't go back. And this Bucky is the last person who knows what that feels like and who understands what that is. And I feel like it's more so that and the fact that they were friends and they had like a deep bond like brothers, that he was, you know, so willing to save him and was so driven and desperate to save his friend. I didn't really see it as them being in love. Although if it were to happen, if they were to put them together, I wouldn't be pissed off about it. I wouldn't be angry. I would just be kind of like, well, okay. Like it just doesn't add up. It just wouldn't add up to me. You know, because like on the flip side, I feel like a lot of people would be really enraged if they took like a historically like gay character and then made them all of a sudden straight in something else, you know? For example, I was one of the few people, or like many people, who was upset about Constantine and his show on NBC being completely straight. Like the writers and the creators straight up said, like, this guy, he's straight. Even though, like, you know, the handful of times he was shown like being sexual or like having like that kind of like relationship with a man was very minuscule, and any like major relationships he had was always with women, like Zatanna, or like Zatanna, or what was her name? She made it onto the show, but she in the comics was also one of his lovers. But he also, like, you know, had been known to, you know, occasionally hook up with men. And so I felt like even if he was, like, bi with a very straight leaning, he still was bisexual, and that should have been addressed. That should have been at least mentioned or something like that. Like, if you don't want him, like, on screen kissing men every 4 seconds, that's your prerogative. But to just go ahead and erase that part of a character, he's bisexual. That's what he is. You can't just change that. That's not right. So I feel the same way about Cap. He's straight. That's just what he is, you know? That's just how I feel about it. And I know probably people are gonna like respond to me and say things like, oh, how do you feel about like race-bent characters and everything like that? And I feel like that's a conversation for another video. I actually have a few opinions about that, and I will probably post about that in the near future. But for now, this is just about that, and this is most specifically about the Captain America situation and like this fan demand for him and Bucky to be together, or him to be with any man, to be like in a relationship. I just feel like, you know, if you're gonna do something like that, do it right, you know? And honestly too, I kind of like see even more than Sharon, because like I said, they didn't really build it up right, especially not in this movie. In Civil War, they didn't have a good enough build-up for he and Sharon to get together. Because it's kind of like, oh, I know now that you're Peggy's niece, and that you guys were together, and Peggy's dead, and now we're making out. I'm just like, that could have went way better. That could have went way differently. They should have at least established the sexual tension a lot more so in like in Winter Soldier first, and maybe like put the pieces in place a little bit, because if you recall, the last time they kind of met in Civil War, or in Winter Soldier, I think she was like Steve, or she was like Rogers, or like Steve, and he was like neighbor, and I was like, ooh, salty. But anyway, yeah, so I don't really agree necessarily with the fact that he should be all of a sudden made gay, because I feel like if he was gonna be gay, they should have at least like dropped some hints or did something to sow the seeds from like first Avenger. Like, you know, started from there. Because I have a problem with things like shows or movies that they're all of a sudden, oh, they were like gay, or like all of a sudden, oh, they were straight. Like, I have a problem with that. I feel like there should have been signs. There should have been some like subtle hints here and there. Like, for example, Tara from True Blood. She showed absolutely no signs of being interested in women until all of a sudden, you know, she was going through a bunch of shit, you know, being raped and beaten by this vampire and everything like that. And then now she is pretty much exclusively into women. You know, I feel she should have been at least bi, but for her to be a total lesbian just didn't add up to me, because she was shown to love men and be in relationships with men. It just didn't really make any sense to me. Not to say that like latent homosexuality or like latent bisexuality and stuff doesn't happen, because it happens, but at the same time, I still feel like there would have still been like subtle hints. Like there's a difference between not knowing it, but you always were, like deep down. Like I said, there's still hints. There's still like, you know, little instances where other people maybe can see it, but you don't, but it's always been there. Maybe you never knew, but other people could kind of see, especially the people closest to you, like your family. So, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with with Steve, all of like just being totally just like gay for Bucky. Like conceptually and like visually, obviously for me that would be hot, but at the same time it's like what's hot and what's like visually stimulating, what's fan service isn't always like the best, you know, story wise. It doesn't always make the most sense story wise. You know, you have to like think about that kind of thing. Just because something is nice in theory doesn't mean that it'll work out. For example, Damon and Elena from Vampire Diaries, they're both strikingly gorgeous and hot, and I always found Damon to be more attractive than Stefan in a lot of ways. But at the same time, you know, while in theory they would have been like the hottest, sexiest couple, he is a horrible person to her, and therefore why let it happen? But executive meddling, pandering to the fans, that's what the CW does. And I just hope that these movies, the Marvel's cinematic universe, doesn't follow that kind of way of thinking, and that they kind of just stick to their guns and do what they want to do. Because so far, it seems that Sharon is probably the one who is to be with Steve, depending on how long she stays with the CIA, because I know he's still like an outlaw, especially now that he's escaped and he broke his people out of the cells and everything. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out by the time of Infinity War. All right. So those are my thoughts on the whole, you know, rumors and like fan demand for Captain America to be given a boyfriend, and for that boyfriend to probably be Bucky. You know, that's just my 2 cents. Do you agree with me? Do you think that Cap should just be, you know, what he has been thus far portrayed as, like heterosexual? Do you disagree? Do you think that, you know, him having a boyfriend would be groundbreaking? It would be an interesting narrative. Or did you see the exchanges between him and Bucky as possibly being, you know, that of romantic love, or like could be interpreted as homoerotic? Let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe if you like this video and if you like my channel. Thank you. Peace.